Hi everyone, so today we're going over the last section of Unit 1.4. Now, I know we just took the quiz on it yesterday, but this section wasn't one that we wanted to test you guys on, so we figured we would do it after the quiz. It's really quite similar to what you've been doing. It still involves all the proof stuff you did with just one very small step at the end. And a lot of you probably already understand what it means. But we're going to go over it and show you how to implement it into your steps. So, first of all, we're going to be using this really big abbreviation today. I can basically guarantee I will butcher saying it out loud a couple times, because if you haven't tried saying it out loud, CPCTC is really a tongue twister. Seriously, try saying that 5 times fast. You will butcher it at least once. So I'm going to do my best to hopefully say it correctly. But CPCTC stands for corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So these are the blanks that you fill in at the top of your page. So let's kind of break down those words while you're filling them in. Remember that corresponding means matching. So the matching parts, like the sides and the angles of congruent triangles, so triangles that we've shown are equal to each other, either by SSS or SAS or whatever, those matching pieces have to be congruent to each other. That's what it's saying. So in other words, if you prove 2 triangles are congruent, every matching piece must be congruent. So we have been practicing just getting to the part where we prove the triangles are congruent, and then we sort of stop there. But what we really can do is then say every other piece in the triangles has to match and be congruent as well. So that's what we're going to focus on with this section today. It's a lot of review with one very small extra step with the CPCTC piece. So first of all, why are these 2 triangles congruent? Well, they give us a side here, followed by an angle in the middle, and then another side. Hopefully you guys were very easily able to recognize that these are congruent by SAS. One of the things you just got tested on. So, what does that say about all the other sides and angles? Well, I already know that AB is congruent to DE because it says it in the picture. It's right here. It's got a tick mark. Okay, and I also know that BC is congruent to EF. But really, I don't know anything about AC and DF until I say that it's congruent by SAS. Once I say that, it automatically means that everything else has to be congruent too. So once I've proven the triangle is congruent by this, now I can say that, hey, AC is also congruent to DF. Okay, now, before we talked about you can't just say it's true, you have to have a reason. Well, my reason is that the triangles are congruent by SAS. Now I can say all those parts are congruent. You can't say it prior to that. Okay, you got to make sure to do this part first. You got to say SAS or SSS or do that piece first. Then you can make the leap that everything else is congruent. In the same way, we know that angle B and angle E are congruent. However, we don't really have anything else about the angles until we do SAS. After that point, we now know that angle A and angle D are congruent. And we also know that angle C and angle F are now congruent. So the new information we just got because of CPCTC is that angle A is congruent to angle D, AC is congruent to DF, and angle C is congruent to angle F. And all of these would be because of CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Once we've shown it by SAS, they all have to be true. And you've got a little thing off to the side, just so you know, that shows you the different types that we talked about. It doesn't have HL listed in there. That wasn't really a huge focus for us. Those other 4 are really more important. If you want to include HL in there, you can, but none of the examples we do today will be HL, just so you know. All right, so let's start tackling our pictures now, our proofs. We're going to do them exactly the same way, but notice they have a different proof statement. This time we're trying to prove that angle C is congruent to angle B. Now, first of all, is there anything obvious about those two to show that they're congruent? No, they're not vertical angles, they don't share an angle, it's not being bisected, so there's no reason to say that they're congruent until we prove the triangle's congruent. So really, before I do this, I have to prove that CAD, the triangle, is congruent to BAD. I have to do this first, then this step will come after it. So let's do this first, just like we've been practicing. As we did before, you start with your given. So CD is congruent to BD. Check the picture, CD, BD, already marked, awesome. And CA is congruent to BA. Check the picture, CA and BA, already marked. Write down given with it. All right, so looking at our picture, do you see anything obvious about another piece that's congruent? Is there a shared side? Are there vertical angles? Is it bisected? Hopefully you caught, and hopefully you did this well on your quiz yesterday. Hopefully you noticed this shared side right down the middle. And because of that, DA or AD is congruent to itself. Hopefully you remember that the reason is by the reflexive property. Okay, and I'm going to mark it with just a triple mark, just so I'm kind of aware of it. So now looking at our picture, I've got a side, a side, a side, and then same thing over here. So can I prove it by one of my reasons? SSS, SAS, ASA, AAS. Which one works for this one? SSS. All three sides are now marked because we figured out the last one. So third step, I can now say that triangle CAD is congruent to triangle BAD because of SSS. Now normally this is where we stop. We're done at this point. We don't go any further. But this time, now we want to take one step after this. Because we've shown that the triangles are congruent, everything that is matching must be congruent. So even though it's not stated in here right now, because of this statement being true, I can now make the assumption that C is congruent to B. CDA is congruent to BDA, and CAD is congruent to BAD. All those angles have to be true. The sides were already marked, but now I can make the jump that the angles are true. So my final step, the one thing we're adding on today, is step number 4. I have to end with what I'm trying to prove. So angle C is congruent to angle B. And our reason is corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, or CPCTC. So now let's take a jump down here. I kind of want to show you guys where this is coming from. Originally, we know a few things about the shape. We know that CD is congruent to BD. That's one of the things we knew. And we also knew that CA was congruent to BA. And we found out because of reflexive property that DA was also congruent to DA. So those were the things that we knew. Because of CPCTC, not only do we know angle C is congruent to angle B, we also know that angle CAD, so this little corner right here, has to be congruent to BAD, the matching spot on the other side. So angle CAD is congruent to BAD. And then the other one as well, this one at point D over here, CDA and BDA are also congruent. So that's the leap we get to make now that we've proven the triangle's congruent. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to show you that once we know the triangles, we know everything, but you have to do that first. You can't do CPCTC until you do SSS or SAS or ASA or AAS. Those have to come first. All right, last example we're going to do. Hopefully you guys can actually knock this one out of the park on your own. You guys are getting really good at the proof stuff from what I've seen. Those of you that are actually participating and working in class, seeing great improvement from you guys. So props to those of you that are working. Check our picture. EB, DB, already marked. AB, CB, already marked. Awesome. Given's already done for us. So right now, we've got 2 sides marked for us. So let's check our options. Even though we're looking to prove this, I want to start by getting one of these 4 statements done. So I've got 2 pairs of sides, one here, one here. That means I either want to do SSS or SAS. I don't really want the double angle ones. So I need to find one more angle or one more side. Well, what in the picture, remember I can't make this leap yet, I still have to do the concrete stuff. What has a concrete reason for being congruent? Okay, before we did CPCTC, what did we look for here? Hopefully you guys are already catching it in your brain. Right here we've got what kind of angles. We've got angle EBA. B is in the middle, therefore it has to be in the middle in the name. EBA and DBC. Hopefully in your brain you said vertical angles. Cool. So now looking at our picture, which one of these 2 did we just prove? Did we do SSS or SAS? Well, it goes side, angle in the middle, and then another side. So it is by SAS. We've proven the triangle's congruent, and we do have to say that first. Make sure you match up the letters appropriately. If I say triangle EBA, E goes with D, B goes with itself, and then C is the final one. And again, it's by SAS. Gotta put that in there. Can't do the CPCTC until I get that part done. Super easy final step. Once I've proven this, I can say any of the corresponding parts are congruent. EA and DC are in fact corresponding parts, so I can make that my 4th step. EA is congruent to DC. The reason again is CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. If you forget that acronym, make sure you put 3 C's in there. 3 C's and then a P and a T in there as well. So again, let's take a real quick look at this. We knew a few things already. We knew EB was congruent to DB. That was something we knew because of the given. And we also knew that AB and CB were congruent. That was part of the given. And then we figured out, because of the picture, that we had some vertical angles. So angle EBA and DBC were congruent because they're vertical. Not only is this set congruent because of CPCTC, after we prove the triangle's congruent, but now all the other pieces are as well. So these guys were congruent, and then our angle pairs were congruent. So E is also congruent to D. Angle E is also congruent to angle D. And then, sorry if I'm giving you a whiplash from moving the screen so much. And then angle A and angle C also have to be congruent because there are other missing pieces. Again, you have to do this after you do this. This has to come first. That's why we taught you that first. Okay? Feel free to rewind. You've also got teachers in the room still. Please make use of that. Raise your hand if you don't understand. Okay? Please don't just sit there and try and figure it out yourself. You've got 3 problems on the back to do. They all involve CPCTC, but you have to do SAS or SSS or ASA or AAS first. Then this is your final step. Okay? Have a great day.